From the headquarters of Talicia English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Saini Gray. A ship carrying over 300 migrants, which was rescued by the humanitarian organization Open Arms, has been allowed to dock in Spain. The government authorized the ship to dock after it was refused by both Malta and Italy. This resulted in migrants spending the holidays in the chilly waters of the Mediterranean Sea. Thousands of migrants hoping to reach Europe to escape poverty and war have died while trying to cross into Europe. Meanwhile, the Spanish Red Cross, which was on hand to receive the migrants, has said the majority of them are in good health.
They are, in general terms, in good health. As a precaution, we have evacuated a person suffering from vomiting and fever. But their condition is good in general.
And in a related incident, the Maritime Service of the Spanish Civil Guard has rescued 147 migrants from the Mediterranean Sea. The rescue team was responding to a distress call sent by a non-governmental organization that witnessed the departure of several boats from the coast of Morocco. Our correspondent in Andalusia, Sergio Rodrigo, has more.
More than 300 people have disembarked in the port of Andalusia. These are migrants who were rescued around the area of Tripoli in Libya by the Spanish NGO Open Arms. This has led to another conflict between Italy and the NGOs, after Italy closed its ports saying it won't receive more migrants, who were finally taken in by Spain. The migrants are now being treated by other organizations, including the Red Cross. In the last hours, several other boats have been rescued from the Mediterranean Sea. Spain is helping with search and rescue operations. This morning, more than 100 migrants disembarked in Malaga. The route between Northern Africa and Spain has seen more than 60,000 people crossing it in 2018, and at least 700 people have died, according to the International Organization for Migration.
Workers' unions and social organizations in Ecuador have taken to the streets of Quito to stand against recent hikes in the price of fuel. More in this report.
Workers' union and several social organizations marched peacefully in Quito against the increase of the price of gas in Ecuador. Finance Minister Richard Martinez announced the price of regular gas, as well as that of Ecopais, which is a type of ethanol-derived gas, will increase from $1.48 to $1.85 per gallon. This has created an uproar in various areas of the country.
This is a neoliberal onset. It is a return of neoliberalism to Ecuador. This already happened in Argentina with the government of Mauricio Macri and in France with the government of Emmanuel Macron. These are outdated policies that already failed in other countries. This is why social organizations are once again taking to the streets to say to Lenin Moreno's government that our resistance starts now.
We have given an economic proposal that says no to oil intervention. We need to reduce the value-added tax from 12% to 10% for there to be an economic recovery. We must not forgive business people's debts, and we must get back to what was stolen so that Ecuadorians don't have to pay these consequences. Purchasing power has decreased. The price of gasoline is going up. There will be an economic crisis and inflation. So that is what we are rejecting.
This is the second demonstration after Minister Martinez made the announcement on the new price of fuel. In most gas stations in the country, premium gasoline has gone up in price from $2.98 to $3.10 per gallon. Before this change, the government had expressed that the price of premium gas would be regulated according to its market value.
Our union is taking its first action against the measures implemented by President Moreno and his ministers, against economic measures that have raised the price of gasoline and greatly affected the economy. It is unbelievable that they are putting their hands inside the pockets of our people to solve a crisis that hasn't been created by us.
The demonstration went past the streets of the historical center in Quito and ended outside the presidential palace. However, as has occurred in the last demonstrations against the economic adjustments, Police blocked the entry to the palace.
This affects us all. The fact that they say that gas prices will increase, that will raise the price of everything. That's why we have to take to the streets and protest, so they know that people are being affected by these economic measures.
Workers' organizations have announced they will continue protesting against price increases and the economic measures of the government. They demand that the president work for citizens' interests and provide the necessary systems so that there is no price speculation of other basic goods, which would directly affect Ecuadorian families.
A key witness in the investigation into the Odebrecht scandal has been found dead in Colombia. The body of Rafael Merchan, the former government secretary for transparency, was found in his apartment. According to authorities, Merchan had been missing since Tuesday and had received death threats. Merchan was to testify in the case of Luis Fernando Andrade, the former director of infrastructure, over allegations that bribes were paid to the Brazilian company to secure a highway contract. This is the third suspicious death in Colombia linked to the Odebrecht scandal following the deaths of the former auditor of the contract and his son, whose bodies were found last month. Just a few days from the end of his term in office, the Brazilian president, Michel Temer, has a disapproval rating of over 80%. According to a poll by Datafolha, 82% of Brazilians say they are against Temer. Meanwhile, 62% categorize his government as really bad and 29% call it regular. Michel Temer came to power after a parliamentary coup against the former president, Dilma Rousseff, in 2016. Meanwhile, the Workers' Party legislative bloc has announced they won't attend President-elect Jair Bolsonaro's swearing-in ceremony in the Congress. The PT said Bolsonaro promotes hate against social movements, against their party, and against their leader, the former president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. They added that Bolsonaro will lead an authoritarian, unpopular, and unpatriotic government with racist and misogynistic views. The PT fears Bolsonaro will destroy the democratic order and the rule of law in Brazil. Last month, Cuba called off its More Doctors program in Brazil after the incoming president, Jair Bolsonaro, made insulting comments about the Cuban doctors. Following this decision, millions of Brazilians have been left without proper access to health care. Our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Brian Mayer, reports.
This is Marcia de Souza, who has been suffering because there are no more Cuban doctors in her neighborhood to attend the flow of patients, and she needs immediate medical care. In Ponto Alto favela in Guarulhos, a distant suburb of São Paulo, the local public health clinic has ground to a halt. 3 of the 4 doctors who worked there were Cubans, and when 8,517 Cuban doctors flew home after the Caribbean nation officially withdrew from the Brazilian government's More Doctors program, following xenophobic comments by far-right President-elect Jair Bolsonaro last month, they've been unable to find replacements.
If you go there, it's all empty. There are no doctors. There are just nurses. Thank God for that, at least. They got rid of the Cuban doctors who used to work here. A friend of mine died because there were no doctors. They have no shame. Things should be better organized. Where is the mayor?
The federal government announced vacancies for the jobs that had been occupied by the Cuban doctors, but people only applied for 70% of the positions, and only half of them actually appeared for work before the deadline ran out. Carlos Derman is a former municipal health secretary from the PT party. He says that last month Guarulhos lost 28 doctors when the Cubans flew home.
It has always been hard to find family practitioners. It's not easy. For people who live far, there was always a lack of doctors. When I was the health secretary during Dilma Rousseff government, I made a deal with the World Health Organization and brought in the Cuban doctors, which was really important.
Now many people have to travel up to 2 hours to São Paulo for treatment.
The Cuban doctors were more human in providing treatments to us. They gave us more time and they listened to us more. On the other hand, Brazilian doctors are not as friendly.
Nobody at the clinic was willing to tell us when or if replacement doctors will arrive for the Cubans. In Guarulhos, this is Brian Mayer reporting for Telesur.
A protest in Chile demanding justice for the death of a Mapuche man at the hands of the national police turned to violence on Thursday. Fighting between protesters and police broke out in Santiago, and one officer was left unconscious. Water cannons and tear gas were used, and several people were arrested. The protest was the latest in a series of rallies following the death of Camilo Cachayanca last month. On Monday, Mapuche leaders called on the president to demand the resignation of the Interior Minister, Andres Chadwick, over the murder. The government of Bolivia is expecting the annual reports by the United Nations Special Agency on the reduction of cocoa leaf crops. There are great expectations over the report's findings, as last year's showed an increase of 7% in the growth of illegal crops.
Social organizations and local authorities from coca leaf producing zones have highlighted that the work of reducing illegal crops has been done for years, in agreement with campesino unions.
There is a coordinated teamwork with social organizations, as well as with different public and private organizations. We have seen a very positive result for our country.
Last year, coca leaf farming increased by 7%, which set off alarms within the organizations responsible for the reduction of these crops. This year, they achieved the record of reducing over 11,000 hectares of coca leaf crops, almost double the 6,200 removed last year.
This year, what we want to see in the report is that we have destroyed most of the illegal crop. That's the best we can achieve at the moment, because if we do a comparison across the region, taking into account all the financial support that comes from Colombia for the growth of coca leaf, they have almost quadrupled their crops. The same is happening in Peru.
Since 2009, when the United States Agricultural Agency was expelled for meddling with Bolivia's international policies, the government assumed the costs of eradicating illegal crops. They also promoted cooperation with neighboring countries and introduced methods approved by campesino unions.
We have new tools that allow the national police to be more efficient. For example, paying informants or intercepting calls. We have an effective cooperation law and a law to destroy property taken from drug traffickers.
Bolivia is the third largest producer of coca, having about 24,500 hectares of the crop last year, out of which 20,000 were legal. Peru comes in second place with 44,000 hectares, and Colombia first with more than 200,000 hectares.
Paraguay is set to inaugurate the first green route of South America in 2019. This electric vehicle route is planned to be 1,000 kilometers long and will connect the country's main cities with the capital, Asunción. Electric cars will be charged in less than 30 minutes at stations all along the highway. Paraguay is also seeking to start a similar initiative with its public transportation. We're going to take a short break now, but we'll have more news after this. Welcome back. 2 women have died in Jamaica after a boat carrying over a dozen passengers capsized. The victims have not yet been identified. 11 passengers were rescued off the coast of Kingston and have been transferred to a local hospital. The authorities say they responded immediately to the distress call made by the boat, and were able to recover the rest of the passengers. The accident happened between Port Royal and Lime Key in Jamaica. And the government of Jamaica is considering imposing fines of up to $7,800 for violating the country's plastic ban. The ban on single-use plastics will take effect on January 1st. It's part of a state strategy to reduce the impact plastic waste is having on the environment. The Ministry of Economic Growth is still debating ways to enforce the ban. And Dominica's government is set to start construction on a geothermal energy plant in 2019. The plant will help bring clean and low-cost renewable energy to around 23,000 homes. according to the government. The project is expected to be completed in 18 months. So far, the government has invested $18 million in the plant. It's to be built in Roosevelt Valley, and it will be a major boost to the Caribbean island, which aims to become the world's first climate-resilient country.
With the headlining World Creole Music Festival.
And the Christmas season is being celebrated with a unique blend of carnival festivities in the Caribbean island of St. Kitts and Nevis. It's the country's biggest event of the year, also known as Sugar Mass. Traditional mass characters fill the streets during Juve celebrations. The spectacle of Sugar Mass Carnival takes over the island every year between Christmas and New Year's. And in some sad news, the Caribbean has lost one of its most distinguished legal luminaries. Sir Fenton Ramsay has passed away. The Queen's Counsel and former Attorney General of Guyana died in Barbados of natural causes. He was 89. Sir Fenton enjoyed a legal career throughout the Caribbean that spanned 6 decades. He holds the record amongst attorneys in the English-speaking Caribbean as having made the most appearances in the Judicial Committee of the London-based Privy Council. He was also at the forefront of the independence movement in Guyana. Heading to Madagascar now, where people have received Andre Rajoelina's recent victory in the country's runoff election with mixed feelings.
I love him because he's young and he didn't really have a chance to exercise his power well during the transition. However, he was able to achieve a lot as president of the transition, and that was good.
The two candidates can say what they want. I would have really liked to have had another person in power, a new face, someone different.
The government of Sudan has confirmed that at least 19 people have been killed during protests against the increase in the price of bread. Those killed included 17 civilians and 2 members of the security forces. Meanwhile, civil society activists claim that 9 opposition leaders, including Sadiq Youssef, a senior leader of the Communist Party of Sudan, have been arrested by the government. They believe the arrests are part of an effort to stop new waves of protests expected after the Friday prayers.
In the northern state, there were 3 deaths. In the state of the Nile River, 5 deaths. And in the state of Gadarif, 6 deaths. In the White Nile region, there were 3 more deaths. Among those who died during the protest, 2 were members of the security forces.
With less than 48 hours to go before the presidential elections in the Democratic Republic of Congo, a new poll is pointing to a victory for the opposition. The opinion poll by the New York-based Congo Research Group revealed that 44% of voters intend to vote for the Lamuka coalition candidate Martin Fayulu. This puts him ahead of the former frontrunner Felix Tshisekedi and the ruling party's Emmanuel Shadari. We'll take a short break now. More news in a minute.
Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, from Havana. Analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Israeli authorities have demolished over 500 Palestinian homes in 2018, leaving more than 1,000 people homeless. The report issued by the Abdullah Harani Center shows that a majority of the demolitions were carried out in the Israeli-occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. In addition to homes demolished to pave way for Jewish-only settlements, Israeli authorities frequently demolished the homes of Palestinians allegedly involved in attacks against them. The Syrian army has entered the Kurdish-held city of Manbij, located close to the border with Turkey. The army said they responded to calls made to guarantee the security of the city's residents.
Based on the Army and the Armed Forces' total commitment to its role in implementing sovereignty on every inch of the Syrian Arab Republic, and in response to the calls of the people of Manbij, the Armed Forces announced that members of the Syrian Arab Army have entered Manbij and have raised the flag of the Syrian Arab Republic in it.
Freezing temperatures could not prevent thousands of determined Mongolians who marched to the government palace to protest corruption. The protesters are demanding the resignation of the Speaker of the Parliament and several other opposition officials of the ruling coalition. They accuse them of demanding bribes in exchange for top government jobs. The officials have also been accused of increasing poverty by pushing for the adoption of neoliberal policies. Bangladeshi authorities have severely restricted internet services ahead of Sunday's elections. The government says this is an attempt to fight the spread of propaganda by political parties. The run-up to the election has been marked by deadly violence. Opposition party BNP has accused the ruling alliance of arresting thousands of their party members. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's party, the Awami League, is seeking a third term in office.
You see, when the internet is down, we can't use the internet calling apps. It can't attend calls from overseas. This is very problematic for all of us.
People like us who are offering ride-sharing services face a lot of difficulties if there is no internet. Like we don't get enough calls, the rain comes wrong, and we face many other difficulties.
Dozens of Yellow Vest protesters have tried to block the entrance to an oil refinery near the city of Lyon in France. They were stopped by the police with no clashes being reported. Representatives of the Yellow Vest movement have said a 7th straight Saturday of protests will take place across the country on New Year's Eve.
What everyone needs to understand is that we've decided not to stop. The movement is not off. There is a small break, let's say during the holidays. And in January, it will start all over again. So we're showing that we're here. We're showing that we're not tired. And then we'll see how far it goes.
The partial government shutdown in the United States will continue into the next year. It was caused by a deadlock over President Donald Trump's proposal to build a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, Trump has insisted that taxpayers should pay the $5 billion required to build the wall. His proposal was opposed by Democrats and some Republicans, leading to the shutdown.
I hope it doesn't take weeks. It's been far too long for the government worker. But to date, I do not know whether the distinguished colleagues across the aisle, my friends, have come to any number that the president can sign, and what he feels very strongly about in terms of border security.
Responding to the shutdown, Trump took to Twitter to express his frustration and called Democrats obstructionists for not helping him fund the wall. He also blamed them for not allowing Congress to change immigration law. On top of this, he also attacked migrants from Central American countries, saying that he will cut off all aid to Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador for not stopping the flow of migration. Time now to take a look at some of the top stories from around the world.
The Chinese government has announced that it will expand environmental inspections of state-owned enterprises. The program is part of an effort to combat high levels of pollution that the world's second-largest economy is grappling with. A report by the Kenyan Wildlife Service indicates that elephant poaching in the country has gone down by over 50%. The report says 40 elephants were poached in 2018 compared to 80 in 2017. In recent years, the government of Kenya has stepped up measures to reduce rampant poaching inside its national parks. Australia's post-Christmas heatwave continues to sweep across the country, with a near record-breaking 49 degrees Celsius being forecast for Western Australia. The country's Weather Bureau has issued fire, health, and air quality warnings across the nation. To cool off, citizens both young and old have taken to the country's beaches.
Well, definitely I go to the highest sun protection what I can find. Usually I take 50 plus, but today I have something around 80, like pretty high. And I have 2 bottles of water with me. Like I try to drink 3 liters at least now in 1 hour.
And we end in Jamaica, where Prime Minister Andrew Holness has shown that it really is a season to be jolly with his dance moves. As we prepare to say goodbye to this year and celebrate the start of 2019, Holness has reminded us how we should do it, so don't forget to show off your best news as you dance the New Year's night away. Very interesting, Prime Minister Holness. We've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at teleserenglish.net. For views in Africa, remember you can find us on StarStat, Channel 461 in South Africa and Channel 539 in Nigeria. Join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Soini Gray. Thank you for watching.